Thank you for joining us again. Welcome back to all of you, our worldwide community, friends and colleagues from the jewelry industry. We were chatting in the chat box there, all the way from Hawaii through to Australia and every time zone in between. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. Please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself and welcome into other friends and colleagues in this global community of the jewelry industry. So welcome to this. This is the 11th of Sibjo's Jewelry Industry Voices webinars with me, Edward Johnson, here in London, and also Sibjo's Head of Communications, Steve Benson, in Tel Aviv. Now, as you know, we always say that these webinars will last 1 hour. Now, last week, if you want to go back and watch last week's on YouTube, you'll see that we were pretty darn close to getting it all done within an hour. We will strive to do that again, but there is much to discuss today. But we do respect our panelists' time, who are very busy people, and we thank them very much for joining us today. So as we know, just to recap briefly for those of you joining our sessions for the first time, the Jewelry Industry Webinar Voices, or the Jewelry Industry Voices webinar series, excuse me, hosted by Sibjo, looks at issues of interest in the jewelry business from the perspective of industry figures. Today, we're going to discuss natural and laboratory grown diamonds with a particular focus on the frameworks that need to be created so that both product categories may exist successfully alongside each other. In the trade, many people and many organizations hope that the growth and entry of lab-grown diamonds, please allow me to shorten from laboratory-grown to lab-grown for conversational purposes. Many people hope that the introduction and growth of lab-grown diamonds will expand the market for all jewelry, regardless of whether they are set with natural or lab-grown diamonds. And with that in mind, Sibjo established a laboratory-grown diamond committee at the Bahrain Congress just last year, November 2019. The intention was to agree on a set of operating practices so that the natural and the lab-grown diamond sectors can more easily work together alongside each other. This would enable both sectors to grow and to flourish, not at the expense of the other, but also while maintaining the consumer's trust and confidence. Before I introduce today's speakers, let's check in with Steve. Steve, good afternoon to you. How are you today?
I'm good, Ed. Nice to see you and everybody else. I'm not going to give much of an introduction of the subject, which speakers will do for themselves, of course. Just to give a few technical details for those of you who might be joining us for the first time. We do encourage questions. What we do, though, is that we request that you put them in the Q&A section. You should be able to find on your screen a Q&A box where you can write in questions. We will leave space to the end over here where we will address as many of those questions as possible, although the speakers do have the opportunity, or the people that you direct the questions to do have the opportunity to answer you in writing as well. The chat box, please, use it freely over here. Let us know where you're from, and you can comment among each other. And that's pretty much it. What I'd like to do, just as we always do when we get started over here, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Gaetano, who will say a few words of welcome, and then we will get on our way. Gaetano.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you, Ed. And let me thank the panelists for having accepted to be with us today for this what I consider a very special webinar, because this is something that Sibjo is very keen to present to all our friends that are listening to us. I would like first to thank the committee and the chairman himself, Wesley, as well Andre, and my thank goes also to Thierry Silver, who is with us listening today, and to all the other that were with us in this committee, meaning Daniel Niffler and Jean-Marc Liberer, now replaced by Raluca from the DPA. Diamond, yes. Just to give you a little background, the subject we discussed today is a sensitive one, namely finding common ground for both the natural and LGD sectors in our industry, enabling both to optimize their potential as business enterprises without either one impinging on the other ability to do so. It's a challenge that the industry has faced before, both at the turn of the last century with the introduction of culture pearls into the market, and later with a range of synthetic color gemstones. But the holy grail was always going to be diamonds. And although they have been produced synthetically for industrial use for well over 50 years, they only began appearing in the jewelry business about 2 decades back. Now, for Sibjo, this has always been an issue of consumer confidence. And as you know, Sibjo's mission statement is mainly focused on consumer confidence. And LGDs like the natural diamond obviously are legitimate product, we have always said, and each has as much right as the other to be used in the jewelry. But despite their chemical similarities, they are different product categories, and in particular, so from a consumer perspective, the difference in their historic legacy, their relative rarity that was in which they are mined and produced, and the long-term ability of producer to guarantee supply to the market means that they start from a different base price, and the trajectories of their values are almost certainly going to be different. Because it is difficult for the consumer to visually differentiate between natural and laboratory grown, it is up to us to do that for them. In Sibjo, there is a core principle of business, and it is that consumer need to be provided of all the information they require. And there's to be transparent, comprehensive, in an understandable manner, so that they make a reasoned purchasing decision. In other words, full disclosure. From that point on, it is up to them where they buy a piece of jewelry and how much they want to pay for them. Simply stated, consumer need to know without any doubt or confusion what diamonds are natural and what diamonds are laboratory grown. As was said last year in Bahrain, but in reality we start much earlier. In 2018, we decided in Sibjo to set up a working group involving representatives of both the natural and laboratory grown diamond sectors, as well as gemological authority. Our goal was to create a set of agreed to operating principles that would protect the rights and confidence of consumers. It has been a long journey, and we have gotten close, but still not quite passed into the promised land. Hopefully, that will happen in the next few weeks or months, And much of that depends on several of the people we have on the panel today, as well as their colleagues and their representative industries. I would like also to give a special thank to Dick Garrett, who has been so kind to be with us not only today, but to cooperate. And he was so nice to accept our invitation to attend the Congress in Bahrain. And I am personally confident, dear Dick, that we, as representative of, let's say, the two sides of diamond, both natural and laboratory grown, I'm sure that we will enjoy working together for the benefit of our consumer. So thank you very much. And again, let me say, as of course, president of CIBJO, that I consider myself a neutral party in this discussion. So I will let each person to speak for themselves. And what I am obliged to defend at almost all costs is the integrity and reputation of our business, and overall, the interest of the consumer who buy from us. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much, you all, that are quite a very high number today with us, about your personal contribution, and please push us to do things, even though for sure we will make mistakes, but at least we do things, because our treasure, our asset is our consumer. Thank you very much.
Gaetano, thank you so much for those words. And yes, there are a large number of people joining us, just over 200 people having joined us so far. Thank you to all of you for your time, especially as many of you have exited lockdown already. So let's get to the panelists and let's get started with this discussion today. So firstly, Wesley Hunt. Wesley is the Director of Program Management and in the Consumer and Brand section at the De Beers Group. And also importantly, he's the Chair of CIBJO's Laboratory Grown Diamond Committee. Good afternoon to you, Wesley. How are you doing and where are you dialing in from today?
Good afternoon, Ed. I'm dialing in from London, just outside London.
Thank you very much. Dialing in sounds very old-fashioned, isn't it? But there we go. Next, Sally Morrison. Sally is the Director of PR for Natural Diamonds at the De Beers Group. But Sally also was previously the Chief Marketing Officer for Lightbox Jewellery, which was De Beers's laboratory grown diamond jewellery brand. Good morning to you, Sally. How are you and where are you calling in from? You'll just need to unmute there, Sally.
Good morning. I am calling in from just outside New York City.
Great, thank you. And love the flowers behind you. Thank you for bringing a little bit of color into this discussion today. Thank you. Next, Richard Garrard, or Dick Garrard to his friends. Dick is the Secretary General of the International Grown Diamond Association, which brings under its umbrella many of the world's leading producers and marketers of laboratory grown diamonds. Dick, good morning to you as well. And how long has the IGDA been in existence?
IGDA was formed in early 2016, so we're 4 years old, and I'm here in sunny North Carolina right now.
Great, thank you very much, Dick. Nice to have you with us. And lastly, but definitely not least, Andrei Zarkov. Andrei is the founder of Ultra C, which is a laboratory grown diamond company. Also previously, Andrei was served as president of the Russian diamond mining company, Alrosa, and also deputy head of Gokran, the Russian Ministry of Finance repository of precious metals, and gems. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. Please note that none of the opinions or information offered during this webinar constitutes any legal, financial, or official advice. CIBJO provides a global perspective on the challenges we're all facing, So please, for more precise information, we encourage you to play an active part in your local trade association and to seek advice relevant to your location and your business. Wesley, if I can turn to you first, finding common ground is a very important first objective for the committee. So as the chair, what was the reason for CIBJO's laboratory grown diamond committee? Why was it established and what was it setting out to achieve?
Good afternoon, Ed, and great to meet you all virtually. So in the simplest term, it was for consumer confidence. So as Gaetano's already touched upon, after the CIBJO conference, and with the amount of lab-grown diamond volumes increasing within the consumer space, it was critical to make sure that the laboratory-grown diamonds is also considered within the jewellery sector. So ultimately, what we were looking to do is to develop a framework under which the lab-grown diamond companies could operate under, but also at the same time making sure it was understanding of the natural diamond sector as well. So it's really that collaboration which has been critical in that framework. So what you'll see on the slides here at the moment, there's just 3 key principles which within the actual group itself has been really critical. Whenever we've had a difficult point of view or we've had differences of opinion, we've always come back to 3 key principles. And given the title of this particular webinar is about rules and engagement, we always found ourselves coming back to these 3 particular principles. As you can see there, and as Gaetano's touched on and Ed has as well, really it always comes down to consumer confidence. That's what we need to focus on. If we don't give that consumer confidence, then we haven't achieved what we want to. And Steve, if you move on to the second one, what does that actually mean in reality? Of course, what it means in reality is that we need to ensure that consumers must receive complete and unambiguous information about what they are buying, whether it's a natural or laboratory-grown diamond, so they can consciously make an informed purchasing decision. Of course, this sounds very obvious, and just on that previous point, Steve, I think the key thing for us is that we know that this isn't always the case. We know that from, for example, the Good Morning America article, which occurred earlier this year, it was quite clear that some consumers, unfortunately, are walking into stores thinking they're buying a natural diamond, but actually walking out with something which isn't a natural diamond. That can't be good for us as a general industry, whether it be a natural industry perspective or a laboratory grown perspective. We have to make sure that consumer knows what they're buying. Otherwise, unfortunately, we know that the one thing which turns off consumers is confusion. So we need to make sure that's the case. And the third principle, which again is equally important, whenever we came up with particularly difficult conversations within the group and continue to do so, such principles should be carried out with mutual consideration and respect by all, agreeing not to seek to disparage or harm either the natural or laboratory-grown diamond sectors in marketing their respective products. It sounds, again, quite an easy thing to actually achieve, but of course, we know that that hasn't always been the case. We know there's an enormous amount of advertising which is not looking to work with the other sector. And I think the one lesson that I would say in rules of engagement more than anything is that for us, and I think for us in the industries that we respectively represent, we need to really do what we can to empathise with the other group to make sure that we are doing what we can in understanding of the other side of the actual coin itself. So they're the key things that I wanted just to cover, Ed.
Okay, thanks, Wesley. Well, empathy is a very key word this year, and as we've had these challenges this year, so it's an important point to recognise. I mean, something that I'm interested in is, you know, the original working group and then later the committee deliberately included representatives of both sectors, the natural and the lab grown. Now, if we make the assumption that some people have that these are 2 different product categories, why should both be involved in this committee?
It's a great question, Ed, and simply it's because we know that both products can affect the other. And that's really what it comes down to. The consumer, as we've already mentioned with the Good Morning America article, consumers are influenced by what they're told within store, and we need to make sure that we consider both sides. And equally at the same time, within a working group, we need to have laboratory-grown diamond companies working with natural diamond companies to make sure that consumer understands what they're buying. Otherwise, we'll never make sure that happens, and there'll be confusion.
Together we're stronger, isn't it? That's the main message. So, and thinking about that, Andre, if we can bring you in with the lab-grown voice, you agreed to be part of the original working group. And what has that process been like, and what lessons have you learned?
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Actually, after I stepped down as president of Alrosa in 2017, I very quickly made a decision with my colleagues to set up a company to deal with laboratory-grown diamonds. And at that time, I remember at the very start of 2018, when we first discussed the idea of establishing the working group or committee with Mr. Cavalieri, the problem was that we saw that at that time in the market, there was a mess. I mean, in laboratory-grown diamond market, a very low level of legitimacy, very low level of awareness. This all was pushing a lot market players, I mean, laboratory-grown diamond producers, dealers, to undisclosed mixing, to all these things which were doing a lot of harm to both natural diamond business and laboratory-grown diamond business. So that's why my idea, my decision to join and actually to set up this committee was to become, I mean, was to bring laboratory-grown diamond to the different category of goods, in order to have a possibility, opportunity of development as a definite category of goods, not interfering, or maybe interfering, but not doing harm to the general business. So that was the main idea.
And what lessons have you learned from that process?
What lessons we have learned? First of all, no war, make only peace. For me, it was very interesting and very important that not only Sibjo and Gaetana, but also De Beers understood that there was a certain need in leadership at that moment for this work, for creating standards and the framework for laboratory-grown diamond business. Also, of course, the natural diamond company, but they understood that it has become their problem as well. And so that was, for me, very interesting. And I think that I want to emphasize that this was very important, that they took also this leadership to set up standards, to help to some extent even IGDA in terms of setting up the standards and rules for laboratory-grown diamond companies.
Thank you. Well, thank you for bringing Dick and the IGDA into the conversation. And Dick, if I can turn to you next. And as Gaetano pointed out in his intro, you participated in the Congress last year in Bahrain, and IGDA has been part of the consultation process for the committee. And so what was your aim for joining, and how has it benefited your mission and the work of your members?
Well, first of all, I was graciously invited to attend and be part of this, commentator and feedback on the working group, and I appreciated that. And I also felt it was important to support our European members that might be part of Sibjo. And I think it's significant that we communicate, because we are in the same space, and it's important to understand each other. And I agree with what Wesley said, and I agreed with the principles that were being put forth for the lab-grown diamond working group. So I wanted to be part of it as much as we could. Having said that, you know, we weren't part of the working group, but we certainly tried to provide our input where appropriate. With regard to our objective and what we got out of it, I think, as Wesley pointed out, this was a difficult task. There was input from both sides that were coming from a lot of different directions, and I think that in a difficult task, my objective was to try to influence the group to consider the U.S. market, and in doing so, consider the revised FTC guidelines were put forth. And I think there was an acceptance to look and try to do that. I think there's still some areas of conflict, and which can create confusion, and that erodes consumer confidence. So I think it's important to keep looking at this and keep evolving it, and see if we can't bridge the gap to address some of the issues that I think still exist.
Okay, thanks, Dick. I'm going to move to Sally now, but Dick, we've had a few comments that people were finding it a bit difficult to hear you. So when we come back to you, maybe a little bit closer.
Yeah, I saw that and I tried this and then I forgot.
Oh, hey, I think that's much clearer. Thank you very much. That's great next time. Sally, though, I wanted to explore, you know, with your knowledge of the consumer and your research of the consumer, we don't have an agreed set of operating principles of this time. That's one of the objectives of this committee. So do you think that threatens consumer confidence for both industries, not just natural or lab grown?
I do, and I would go further to say it's not just it affects the lab grown and the natural industries. I think it affects the whole sector, right? The whole jewelry sector, because anything that is unclear or confusing or bad in any of these materials is sort of generally bad for all of us. And I think what we saw when we went through, for example, the blood diamond situation, that any kind of wobble in the system affects everybody in jewelry, not just the people producing diamonds. So yeah, I do. I think there's a need for more clarity, very, very clear rules of engagement. Certainly with the consumers we've talked to, and we've talked to at this point quite a lot, there's still a lot of confusion out there amongst consumers. What is lab grown? Is it moissanite? Is it this? Is it that? There's a very wide range of depth of understanding. So I think it's incumbent on all of us actually to work hard to do better in that regard.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, thinking about the differentiation of the products, let's move to thinking about that. And Sally, if I can stay with you, you know, as a marketeer, is it possible to market natural and lab-grown diamonds as two separate product categories? Steve, maybe you could move the slides on.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think what we saw in all our consumer focus groups, once consumers understood the differences between the two things, they started to identify places in their lives that these various products can fit. And what was obviously the position we took at Lightbox was we felt like the market opportunity was definitely in color and in fashion jewelry, because consumers told us once they understood what lab-grown material is, it would be great in their lives for a more accessible, fun, lighter kind of accessory that was at a much more accessible price point. And we felt that was a great place for growth. I would say not just a great place for Lightbox for growth, but for, again, the whole sector. You know, there's not been a lot of innovation in the jewelry sector. So there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to grow whole new bits of the category. And I think this is where lab grown can really play an important role, and it's exciting.
Andre, thinking about that from your perspective, since you have you sell loose and polished and rough lab-grown diamonds, but you also have a lab-grown diamond brand as well. So from your perspective, is it possible to market both as two different product categories?
Yes, for sure. And, you know, I agree, 100% agree with Sally that the positioning, actually, yes, the correct positioning of the goods is of paramount importance. So who is your target audience? And but as we have said, at the moment, I would say the more important thing for laboratory grown diamond, actually I agree with Sally, it's for the whole business is important to increase awareness, to increase correct awareness and correct education of possible consumers, so that they understand what kind of goods they're buying, why they're buying, and what's going to happen with them afterwards. So that's why at the moment, and not only at the moment, but in future, of course, it's very important to have a correct positioning in jewelry brands of different goods. I mean, of jewelry with natural diamonds, with laboratory-grown diamonds. Laboratory-grown diamond, actually, why it's so well accepted maybe today? Because to my mind, it's democratization trend. So it's one of the main trends is democratization of luxury, democratization of diamonds. So that's why, of course, and laboratory-grown diamonds and natural diamonds, and I would say there is a lot of competition for our wallets from different products. But to my mind, so this category goods can be marketed separately.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Dick, let's turn to you for that as well, because the concern is that each product category eats into the other's market share. So to what degree do you feel and your members feel that they appeal to different consumers, these different products?
Well, I think it has brought a different level of consumers back into the diamond market. It's made people aware of a choice that they have. And so I think the consumers are the same. I just would say that it's brought more of the older consumers back into the market, and certainly affected from the millennial side. Both products are diamond. And I think we'll discuss later the distinction between the two, but they are both diamond. And it's very important to be clear at the retail level, at the wholesale level, and completely down the chain, which product is being sold and which product is being considered by the consumer. So we support that 100% at IGDA. So two product categories, yes, they're a different origin of diamond, but they are both diamond. And many retailers, e-commerce brands, leading jewelry brands have proven you can sell lab-grown diamonds and mined diamonds side by side. And they let their customers make the final choice. And the number of those retailers are growing rapidly. This generation of millennials have information at their fingertips. And so for the most part, they have strong opinions of what they consume and how they consume it. And they ask questions, and they ask their peers, and they trust their peers. So consistent, straightforward information is key. And so I agree with the fact that we need to be consistent with that to build consumer confidence. So I don't call them different product categories. I call them a different product within the same category. Slight variation.
And Dick, you talked about the distinction between the two products, and Coletta Hansen's in the chat has suggested that the product has a different origin. How do you draw the distinction between lab-grown and natural diamonds?
Well, the distinction between the two is based solely on their origin. As defined by the FTC, they're scientifically identical, except one grows below the earth and the other grows above the earth. And that's why FTC removed the word natural from the definition of a diamond. So as far as drawing a distinction between the two, from a consumer standpoint, each one of us bears the weight to do that right and correctly and what's in the best interest of the consumer. For mined diamonds, you tell the story of history and rarity. For lab-grown diamonds, we tell the story of value and brightness and quality for the consumer. And to mislead the consumer either way is the type of things that Wesley mentioned that we have to stop from both sides.
All right, thanks. And I mean, Wesley, turning to you then, when you started the committee, how did you go about that task of product differentiation?
The key thing again was really about that transparency and putting ourselves in the shoes of the consumer to make sure when they walk into the store, do they really know what they're actually purchasing? And ultimately, I think that's what guides us every single time we look at the actual guidelines and what we're looking to achieve.
And Sally, from a De Beers perspective, for you, the company you represent sells both products. How do you differ in the communications approach for them both?
Well, I mean, I think just echoing what some of the other panelists have just said, our approach was lighter. It was speaking to a different mindset. It was speaking to accessory, fashion, jewelry. It certainly was about value. We entered the market at $800 a carat and priced based on cost of manufacturing. So we wanted to bring in a new, younger consumer into that space. And I think also that the fact that we introduced color from the get-go also was, allowed us to be more playful in some of the design and things like that, because we were offering a sort of different experience to the consumer. So it was positioned very, very differently. I think of natural diamonds as absolute gift of love. And certainly in all the groups we've done, given a choice for a very important life milestone moment, most consumers would prefer a natural diamond. That's just what they told us. So I think that sort of allows us to define the product very specifically in a very different way. I would just say one thing that's sort of interesting about the color, which is to the point that we were talking about earlier about expanding the offering, expanding the market, and sort of bringing innovation into jewelry. When we started, we thought there'd be pretty slow adoption of blue and pink because most people have never seen a blue or a pink diamond. It hasn't occurred to them. So we thought it was beautiful and pretty, but we thought it would be slow. Interestingly, almost from the beginning, about half our sales were in blue and pink, were in color. So there is a kind of appetite for freshness and newness. And I would just add to what Dick said, this is also about innovation, right? Technical innovation, the ability to this is a very kind of tech savvy generation. They've got their iPhones, they've got this, they've got that. And the tech story and the idea you could manufacture something in a new color or a new shape or whatever is very appealing to them.
Well, I'd agree with that. The opportunity to buy a lab-grown pink or blue diamond for $800 a carat was a very tempting offer, I'd say. So
yes.
Pricing really is everything, though, in this discussion. And Wesley, if I can turn to you from De Beers' natural diamond supply chain, how do you price your natural diamonds, and can you comment on how that differs from lab-grown?
Of course, and actually Sally just touched on it as well. And ultimately, from a natural diamond perspective, we do price it based on rarity, and of course that's why when the polished product is produced, the D color and F color has a different price based on that rarity, and that has evolved over a number of years. In terms of the LGD products, as Sally touched on, that is based in a completely different way. It's a technological product, so therefore we look at the cost of manufacture, and ultimately we know that you can manufacture as many as you want to manufacture, and thus we price it as a technological product.
Andre, let's turn to you for the pricing if we can as well, to get the perspective of the lab-grown sector. How do you price your lab-grown? I mean, other than the weight of the stone, what other objective criteria are there for pricing it any higher or any lower?
Today, laboratory-grown diamonds, if we speak about today, laboratory-grown diamonds are priced almost same way. I mean, based, I would say maybe there is not a coefficient of rareness, but coefficient of technology still in it until the market is not fully mature. But we price same based on Rappaport basis, taking into consideration the color, clarity, carat and cut. But of course, this I'm talking about colorless, yes, diamonds. Of course, if we talk about fancy color diamonds, of course the pricing is different today. We still use inside the company the benchmarks based on colorless diamonds, because the prices between fancy colored diamonds and laboratory grown diamonds and fancy colors, natural diamonds. In natural diamonds, of course, the prices are absolutely different and cannot be compared. Honestly speaking, I think that in future, in 2-3 years, we will see more pricing for laboratory grown diamonds based on benchmarking. Based on benchmarking. So I think that probably it's another important issue for differentiation of these two categories of laboratory grown diamonds and natural diamonds. But as of today, if we speak about pricing mechanism, we still use the Rappaport list, and we still use the grading characteristics that we get from laboratories.
So you're pricing your diamonds based against natural, benchmarked against natural, briefly, yeah?
Today, yes.
All right. And Dick, I mean, one of the concerns for some people in the natural sector is that if we look at the experience of the colored gemstone sector and also the pearl sector, we know that over time, the price per carat of lab-grown stones, or, you know, in the case of cultured pearls versus natural pearls, as production volumes have increased and the cost of production has fallen, this has affected the value of the lab-grown stone. So today, on average, there are, you know, lab-grown stones in the colored gemstone sector are worth a small percentage of equivalent natural ones. So why do we think that the experience for diamond or lab-grown diamond will be any different?
Well, there are two major differences, Ed. First,
You might need to speak up a bit there, Dick. I can't hear you very well.
There are two major differences. The first is consumer demand for laboratory-grown diamonds, which continues to outpace available supply of worldwide production. The second is the reason consumers buy diamond in the first place. Throughout the last decade, as consumers became more and more aware of lab-grown diamonds, the demand has steadily increased every year. They're certified by laboratories. They look the same and technically identical to mine diamonds. So it's hard for customers and industry to ignore the number of mine diamond professionals that have jumped into the lab-grown diamond business. So the market's there. So the question on prices, at wholesale level, there has been a hit. I think it's been on both sides of the product categories. As we understand it, particularly in lab-grown diamonds, it's more on the wholesaler level rather than experienced and reduced production costs. It still takes the same high technology, the same time, the same care, and the same expertise to grow a DEF high quality lab-grown diamond, large lab-grown diamond. It's not like mining where you find the rare one in the midst of a bunch of melee and others, but it does take time, and those costs do not go down for the half carat and above good quality stone. And so the other difference is why the market buys diamond to begin with. The majority of the colored gems is, as Sally said, for fashion. And, you know, a lot of the lab-grown diamonds going that way, you know, they're intended for that market in the fashion market. But where IGDA members have seen their sweet spot is with bridal. And the demand continues to significantly outpace supply of available lab-grown diamonds. And that's with, you know, considerably more producers coming online. But it's hard to produce that stone. And the cost, we don't believe the cost is going to go down. So we think the combination of the two, you know, strong consumer demand and the reason consumers purchase a diamond, which is for love and for a significant moment in their life.
And do you see that pricing structure as holding steady at retail? Do you see that as sustainable?
Yes, well, to date, you never know what the future looks like, but to date, our members are seeing stable pricing in the larger, good quality stones and for the bridal market. And some are continuing to see increases. So at the moment, we don't see that having a short-term effect for sure, and hopefully not a long-term effect for the two reasons I just gave. It's not easy to produce a DEF lab-grown diamond stone of large size.
Yeah,
And that will continue to be difficult to get from thousands of producers.
Thank you. And thinking about that, you mentioned DEF. Of course, we're talking about grades there. So the grading of this product, lab-grown, is an area of some difficulty for some in the natural side to accept. So Sally, if I can turn to you, the natural diamond sector claims that the current grading system implies that some stones are rarer than others. Why is this the case, really?
I just love to just respond to something Dick said, and I'd actually reference something Andre said, and what about pricing and how prices are holding steady at the moment, and not disagreeing with any of that. But Andre said something about the coefficient of technology, and I think that's a really, really important thought, because these are technological products, and what we've seen with every other technology, once Pandora's box is open and once that technology is out of the box, it tends to increase, it tends to get better, the tech gets better, and in turn it gets cheaper. And we all know the examples of that, the DVD, the flat screen TV, all these things. The price curve on technological products tends to push prices down. We believe, based on what we're doing, that is also going to happen in lab-grown diamonds. To come back to your question, your second question, which is about grading, because it's a technological product, and because if you tightly control your processes and you have a good recipe, you can pretty much predict what's going to come out at the other end. We don't think that grading is really relevant. Clearly, if it looks good, if a consumer wants it, they don't necessarily need to have a grade. If we buy an iPhone, we don't have individual grades about the level of tech, right? We just buy the brand and trust that the Apple technology is going to be consistent. So we have a very different view about grading. I think that for us in the natural side, it's about relative rarity, and the grading system is a tool to define relative rarity. And I think the one thing I guess we would all agree on this panel is that lab-grown stones are not rare, because people by definition can make more and probably can make better over time. So.
Well, we're all about finding areas where you can agree. So Dick, if I can bring you in, is the lab-grown sector open to developing its own grading terminology? And, because they're not as rare as Sally said. And if not, what's the problem there?
Well, as I'll say that at this time, we have no intention or program that will look at a separate grading for lab-grown diamonds. We are committed to, as our members and as an association, to using correct nomenclature for lab-grown, and certainly everyone undertakes that in signing a document when they join IGDA. But several lab-grown, and the problem is the consumer, and the problem comes back to your ideals and the principles that you're trying to establish in this CIBJO group, and that is not confusing and providing consumer confidence. Lab-grown diamonds have been graded by international labs for the last 5 to 8 years anyway, certainly the last 5 years. And they've been graded to the 4 C's characteristics. GCAL, which happens to be a member of IGDA, IGI, and others. And they issue the certificates that are clearly lab grown. And that's important. That's key. We want that. So it's obvious that from the certificate, it's a laboratory grown diamond. But right now, customers understand the importance of a certified lab-grown diamond. And it's growing to the point that now they not only appreciate knowing what they are buying, but they also fully expect a comparable grading report between lab-grown and mined diamonds. So the question is, you know, where do we separate it and how do we do that if we want to do that, which at the moment we do not, and still hold consumer confidence? They've been confused about these two products for some time. So that's my point.
All right, well, thank you. And you know, and it's an important point. You talked about lab-grown diamonds have been graded by labs for some time, but Wesley, if I can bring you in, De Beers' own diamond grading labs don't accept lab-grown, as I understand. So surely, if the consumer, as Dick says, deserves a clear description of the product he's or she is buying, why aren't you grading lab-grown diamonds in your labs?
So good question. Our grading laboratories have really focused, as you know, on natural and untreated diamonds. And really from our perspective, as we do with Lightbox, the focus is really for the manufacturer to give that description and that technical specification rather than the grading laboratory. So I think on Sally's point, my concern, and still continues to be a concern with my De Beers hat on, is the consumer will be walking into a store, walking out with a laboratory grown diamond, thinking there'll be some level of enduring value with that product because they have a grading certificate, which often is associated with value. And I think deep down, that's the bit which I worry in a few years' time when that consumer thinks they've bought something which has a certain value. But as the technological processes improve and that value comes down, that consumer is we're going to be in a difficult position when that consumer thinks that they've bought something which has value, which unfortunately won't have. So that's my real concern, and that's why we think the Lightbox can continue to sort of offer that technical specification rather than our grading laboratories, because we don't believe that that's necessarily appropriate in the same way as it is for natural diamonds.
No, thank you. Andre. Yes, Andre, you wanted to join.
Yes, to my mind, I understand very well, and I agree that, yes, to some extent today the grading is associated with value and rareness, but to my mind, grading for us is purely specification. I mean, it's purely characteristics of the product that we buy or sell. So as Sally was talking about electronics, iPhones, all the products we buy, they have certain characteristics, but it doesn't directly mean that products with this or that. Maybe I can give you example. Maybe tomorrow there will be a new deposit of natural diamonds which will produce only DIF diamonds, and we will see that inflow of these diamonds will definitely affect the prices of these diamonds, but it doesn't mean that they will have different characteristics, different features. So that's why for us mostly, and I agree that consumers should understand it, that DEF, these are certain characteristics for natural and for laboratory grown diamonds. But in terms of pricing, inevitably we will see in future what I have already mentioned. The pricing for laboratory grown diamonds in maybe 2, 3, 5 years will definitely be based on benchmarking. It will not be based like today on Rappaport basis. This is clear because the laboratory grown diamond as a manufactured product, it will be more commoditized. So that's why it will be, the pricing will be more benchmarked. So what I mean, so for example, maybe benchmark will be GVS Plus or GVS 1, and other products will have some discount or some premium to this product. So I think that this is in future, but of course we don't have a crystal ball. Also, just I want to add a few words about marketing and my insight of marketing of laboratory grown diamond jewelry, because of course when we are talking about marketing, we mostly talk about jewelry, not diamonds themselves, I mean laboratory grown. And here I can say that, for example, we see the difference, the differentiation of the target audience which are buying laboratory-grown diamond jewelry. And another thing which I think very important, we should all be very careful while marketing laboratory-grown diamonds or natural diamonds when we give certain adjectives. We, for example, in our company, in our jewelry brand, never use them, such as non-conflict, green, eco-friendly. I think this is very, very carefully, should be used very carefully. And on the contrary, we need to understand that marketing of laboratory-grown diamonds and natural diamonds is important on the basis of development of different trends and categories, not on the basis of conflict and comparison, like it is today. We see, I'm sorry, but we see sometimes from laboratory-grown diamond industry or from, for example, natural diamond business industry, from associations, some claims like they are not real, we are not da-da-da-da-da. It's very dangerous for the marketing of the diamond itself, because we still need to understand that we all live in a glass house in terms of diamond itself. So not to lose the confidence, not to make our consumers disappointed with diamonds at all. We should be very, very careful in marketing these goods. Thank you.
I'm seeing some acknowledgement. A few heads nodding there on the panel, and also Dilip Mehta is agreeing with you in the chat box there. But I do want to move on. I'm sensitive to time. Looks like we're not going to get this wrapped up within an hour. We failed again, but I'm sorry. It's a fascinating conversation. I do want to finish up with some questions about detection, because this is a, differentiation, detection. It's a very important part of what we're trying to achieve for consumer confidence. So Wesley, how effective at the moment do you see the current technology to be able to differentiate between natural and lab grown, and also how accessible is it for the trade?
It's a good question. I think in the last few years, certainly there's been vast improvements. As I think most people on this call will be aware of, De Beers has developed quite a bit of equipment, such as the AMS2 synth detector, aid that process. And I think if you know, everyone on the call can go onto the Natural Diamond Council now and actually see a list of detection equipment which is indeed accessible. So I think that's the key benefit where we are today than where we were a few years ago. So if you as a person or as a company want to be able to test diamonds, there's a way to do that and to do it properly. So I don't buy any situation now where you can't do that.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Now we're almost up to the hour. We've got 23 questions in the question box. So Steve, are there any questions in there that have caught your eye that we can kick off with?
You're on mute, Steve.
Steve, you're on mute.
Right, okay. Maybe let's talk over here, because there were quite a few words over the use of the word natural over here in terms of the FTC rules and the decision then of the DPA to change its name to the Natural Diamond Council. And Dilip Mehta asked whether the use of natural diamonds is acceptable given directed to Americans. I don't know, maybe for Sally, if you want to relate to that, because there obviously was a decision to change the name of the Natural Diamond Council. Does that comply with FTC regulation?
I think it does, but I was not involved in the rebranding of that organization. Wes, I think you may have had some conversations around that, or maybe we should speak to Raluca. She's in the audience, and ask her how they came to that decision.
Absolutely. I wasn't also involved, but I do support the idea, because of course a natural diamond can be described as natural. So I can't see any way why you can't use natural within the context of the FTC as well, across the globe as well. So from my side, that is 100% valid.
We do have Raluca in the audience actually, and I've clicked a button. Raluca, are you with us? Okay. Doesn't sound like it. Technology didn't quite let us do that. There's a number of questions here about green claims. We've got one here, you know, Dick, what about environmental claims that are being made by some sectors of the lab-grown industry? You know, some people in the natural feel that some of these claims are not accurate and are not fair. Where do you sit with that?
Well, IGDA is not a regulating body, so I do agree that in any industry, in particular this industry, there's people that are going to be on both sides of the spectrum. There's going to be people who follow the guidelines right to the T. There's going to be a majority of people that do what they can to work within those guidelines and still yet make their product viable and promote the benefits of that product. And then there's going to be people on the far end of both sides of this product category that take advantage and abuse the guides because they know they can make money at it. So I do think there are people out there that are not doing what they should do to provide the credibility we need from this marketplace. We continue to stress to our members and anybody that asks us that are not members, follow the FTC guidelines, period. If you're going to make sustainable claims, have them backed up. So that's all I can say about that. We're in an industry where, and it's not probably unique to the diamond jewelry industry, where there's people that abuse that on both sides. And I think it's rare. I think it's a small percentage. I think most people are trying to do the right thing.
Andre, you wanted to come in on that.
Yes, as for me, I'm personally, my viewpoint is that all these claims, they have much more, you know, reference and importance, of course, for the goods that we consume inside, when it's organic goods and so on. So, secondly, I think that yes, all these claims, they are very important. And we say in our guidelines that all these claims should be verified by the third party before you can declare it and you can use it as a promotion of your product. Another thing, to my mind, it's more related to the company which produces, for example, laboratory grown diamonds. I mean, in terms of sustainability, in terms of the position and maybe even market cap of this company, it's much more important, and it can promote the company in terms of its principles of sustainability. But as I have mentioned, I don't think that for the marketing of laboratory grown diamonds, it's you know, it's the main trend. It's a main trend, and it's an important trend. That's my viewpoint.
All right, thank you. We've got a question here from Adolfo de Basilio in Spain. I'll just read it out, and please, anybody feel free to chip in and answer. Adolfo asks, a jeweler must be an expert in lab grown and obviously all gems. Having said this, if you have 2 stones, 2 carat, 1 natural, 2, I'm sorry, I'll try to read it. If you have 2 stones, 2 are natural and 1 is lab grown with the same characteristics, if they get mixed, what would, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read it, but I don't understand it. Let me come back to that one if I can.
Ed, I've got a question.
If you go on there, thank you.
Yeah, okay. It actually also comes from Dilip Mehta over here, but it relates again to the question of pricing. They were saying Sally wondered whether one should say $800. We're obviously talking about the price of the light box per carat because of cost of production. He said this is what mine diamonds in the mid part of the pipeline are conditioned to do. He said the lack of margin has curtailed growth and investment in essentially mid-range diamonds, because clearly there's a perception over here that the margins at the better are at the moment are better with lab-grown diamonds. we'd spoken earlier about where these markets sort of differ and where they cross over, and clearly the largest crossover is in these lower range goods, in the sort of melee ranges. I don't know, I put this question out to all sides of the market over here. Who is, you know, what is going to happen with melee goods? I mean, is there going to be price confusion? Is there a point at which members of the trade are more likely to work with lab-grown diamonds because they're going to get better margins in their own companies for those types of goods? I don't see anybody wants to pick up the question over here.
Is the question clear?
Yeah, okay, we'll go to Wesley, yeah.
Yeah, no, Steve, I think the key point from this perspective is understanding, we know at the moment the retail margins, there is some evidence that the retail margins are slightly better, but from our perspective, that is because that the wholesale and the manufacturing advantage and the reduction in the cost to manufacturers and also in the wholesale hasn't been passed on to the consumer yet. And ultimately, from our perspective, if the differentiation is there for melee diamonds as it is with larger diamonds, there's no reason why they wouldn't be valued as much as they would be between natural and lab-grown diamonds. So we just think this is a situation at the moment where unfortunately the benefits haven't been passed on to the consumer as yet as they probably should be.
Dick, we got a question here that's about pricing. It's from Paul Koppelman. And Paul asks, should the consumer be informed that the resale value of lab-grown diamonds is on a different scale compared to natural? I know we talked about this, but how would you respond to Paul's question there, Dick?
I don't hear.
Dick, we can't hear you.
It's an interesting question, but from a time in the marketplace perspective, we don't know. We know that there's no reason the value should go down at the moment. We believe it'll have value, equivalent value going forward. And we think that's what we've seen so far with a number of wholesalers and retailers offering buybacks the same as a mine diamond retailer would do. So right now we don't see that's a problem. The consumer certainly needs to be aware they're considering a lab-grown diamond, and that's what's important.
All right, thanks. I'm trying to read through the questions. Andre, you've got a point.
Yes, I could say that due to the lower price level of laboratory-grown diamonds today, comparing to the same natural diamonds, I can say that even if you compare the liquidity level of laboratory-grown diamonds and natural diamonds, I would say that as of today, in terms of secondary resale, the liquidity of laboratory-grown diamonds sometimes is even higher.
Okay. We were talking, Andre, earlier in the week that you felt that there was going to be actually no market for any kind of diamond to be sent to laboratories in the future. I think we talked about, 3 to 5 years, there won't be a need for independent laboratory reports. I mean, is that where you sit, and that there's really no need for any certification standards to be developed for lab grown because there won't need to be independent lab reports?
You see, it's why I think, and it's yes my viewpoint that in some time there will be no need for laboratory grown diamonds in independent grading reports. It's mostly because it's manufactured product, and the responsibility for this product lies first of all on the producer. I mean, and if we have reliable producing companies in the world, actually for me, for the manufactured product, if I buy some phone or something else, I don't need any third-party confirmation that this product has these certain features. So that's why, to my viewpoint, I think that in due time, probably the manufacturer specification still, I think that in terms of grading, in terms of characteristics, it will be probably the same, because they're mostly accepted in the world and they are well accepted by the consumers. But in terms of laboratory grading reports as a third-party report, I think that probably in some times there will be less need of in such things.
Okay, thanks. I believe we have managed to reach Raluca Angel from the Natural Diamond Council. Raluca, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Yes,
My
Raluca.
name earlier, I was just desperate to just click. Yeah, that's perfect. So just a clarification, because I think there is a huge misunderstanding with regards to the FTC. Real, natural, genuine, and precious, only in conjunction with a natural diamond from the earth. So these are descriptors that cannot be used with laboratory natural diamonds. So that's basically part of the FTC guides that should be clarified, I think. The Jewellery Vigilance Council, they actually...
Raluca, I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Raluca, I'm sorry, you're breaking up, and we're getting about one word in every three is going missing. I'm sorry about that. Can you just introduce yourself so everybody knows clearly who you are and where you're calling from?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead and try.
Perfect. So my name of External Affairs and Industry Relations at the Natural Diamond Council as of June 1st, and I'm actually calling from London.
Okay, thank you. And if anybody didn't hear, that's Raluca Angel, who's Head of Industry Relations for the Natural Diamond Council. Raluca, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Edward.
Pleasure. It's a good lesson to me here with all these questions. Some of them are quite complicated and wordy. So please, when you're sending in questions, try to keep them simple for us to go through. But you know, we do have questions that relate around the pricing. We've had questions relating around the environmental claims as well. Steve, have you seen any other questions you want to pop in?
You know what? There's not a question here, but there's a question that we had gone through earlier, which actually was which I'd once discussed with Andrea as well. But I think it's a relevant question that we'd like to get an answer from, and it deals with the issue of the 4 Cs. And on the assumption over here that both for laboratory grown and for natural diamonds, carat and cut are essentially the same. These are the same standard. When it comes to color and clarity, it seems to be a different issue, and that's where there has been some controversy. In the case of color. Clearly there is a much wider possible color range in lab-grown diamonds than there are in natural, and shouldn't that be addressed in the way in which that is used by the laboratory-grown diamond industry? And when it comes to clarity, if you're able to produce a high clarity stone every single time possibly just through good quality control, for what reason would you have a full clarity range in the clarity grade? I mean, why would any lab-grown diamond producer want to produce a lower clarity stone?
Andre, maybe you want to take that?
Well, first of all, maybe, Stephen, maybe it's correct to say that maybe in future, the improvement of technology, the achievement of technology will allow us to produce internally flawless laboratory-grown diamonds. But still, as of today, if we are talking about today's situation, I wouldn't say that there is a 100% sustainable technology which allows the producers to produce as many as possible laboratory-grown diamonds of internally flawless. So we see a lot of diamonds coming to us, for example, which have absolutely different clarity characteristics, same like natural diamonds. I mean, we see very, very small inclusions, very small, even inclusions. So that's why, honestly speaking, today this is not a correct question. It's not correct today because we see the variety of the goods with different clarities, with different colors, and even you correctly mentioned, Edward, that the colors of laboratory-grown diamonds are expanding. It's even more broad than today's natural diamonds. So, but to say that we have all diamonds with, internally flawless clarity, we cannot say it. So that's why still the consumers, they should understand when they buy the product, they should understand that this product is e-color, very small inclusion. Yes, clarity VS, or very, very small. Or still, there should be a proper understanding of consumers. And today, the only way, even that in Russia, there is a different standard. We use a different standard of colors and clarity comparing to GIA, but still, mostly of the jewelry which is sold to people, although they have, according to this standard, different grading system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
International grading characteristics as well.
Okay, thank you. Dick, you were agreeing with some of that, and it is a difficult area, the grading system. Where do you, just finishing up here, what were you were nodding in agreement there.
Well, as I said earlier.
Please, can you use your microphone close? Thanks.
As I said earlier, it's difficult to grow a high quality large stone. And it doesn't happen over and over and over again. And it certainly doesn't happen multiple in any one run. I think this is, you can just look at the difference in prices of some of the laboratory grown products that are on the market and some of the scientific or electronic grade diamonds that are on the market. And you see those prices where they have to control the quality of an electronic grade or an optical grade diamond for scientific use. Those prices are high. I can't even compute a dollar per carat. Wesley might be able to, but they're not the same. They're not $800 a carat. So the point that you can produce a high quality DEF 2 carat, 3 carat stone all the time is just not true. And that's why I was nodding. I agree with Andrei.
Okay, all right, thanks. Listen, it's 18 minutes past. We could talk about this for hours. The trade has already talked about it for hours. The point of this conversation was to find common ground. I'd like to go around each of you and identify where there is common ground between the lab-grown community and the natural community. Sally, can I start with you on that briefly to end up?
Sure. I think there's a common ground around the need for disclosure, the need for accurate descriptions of the two products, and to touch on what Andrei said in terms of claims of eco-friendly this or that. For both sides, I think we're agreed that all claims need to be validated by a third party, regardless of which product we're selling.
Okay, thanks a lot. Dick, final thoughts from you on that point. Where are we agreeing today?
Well, the lab-grown diamond industry is very young.
Please, can you use your microphone?
The lab-grown diamonds industry is very young, particularly compared to the mining industry. But I will say we are in agreement that full disclosure is necessary to sustain consumer confidence. And it's important for the consumer to know. So we support that completely. We think we've come together on some of the input on the CIBJO working group guidelines, and that's good. I think there's some open issues that the FTC highlighted, and no, they I'll agree with what someone said in a question. We're not supposed to use real diamond unless it's very clear it's lab-grown diamond. We're not supposed to use the word natural for lab-grown diamond. That's clear. What's also clear is that Mine Diamond marketers should not use the words real, genuine, natural, or synthetic to imply that a lab-grown diamond is anything but a real diamond, an actual diamond. And that's in the FTC cautions. And I think it'd be good if the CIBJO guidelines at least consider something like that, to not only throw things at what the lab-grown diamond marketers should do, but also what the Mine Diamond marketers should do.
Okay, thanks. Oh, we used a new term in there, but we'll skip past that. Thanks, Dick. And Andre, some final thoughts for you as well on where we've achieved common ground here.
I think in a short period of time, laboratory grown diamonds, they have gone away from rejection, resentment, and anger from diamond industry to full understanding that this is a certain category which will be developed, which is developing. And I think that it's for the sake of all jewelry and diamond industries that this category is developed, it will be developed in a correct and the right way. So that's why we go on in our committee to do our utmost to set the standards and rules. And moreover, I think there will be a need of strong position of IGDA and strengthening of its position in order to implement these rules and standards into the laboratory grown diamond community.
Okay, thanks. And Rob, Wesley, hopefully we've given you some food for thought and information as you go forward with the committee. Where do you see the main areas that you can build from in the common ground between the two product categories?
Absolutely, Ed. And I think the key thing for us, and we've learnt this over the last 18 months, is the third principle we work by, which is not to disparage the other sector. We are definitely far more collaborative than we were when we first begun. And I think that can certainly be a lesson for us all, and we will continue to work in that way and broaden that out to the wider LGD community as well.
Journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And I applaud CIBJO and Wesley. Thanks to you for starting that journey and everybody else who's been part of the committee. Gaetano, would you like to say a few words to close?
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you to all the panelists, including Raluca, even though we heard one word on three. But we are working very hard. The committee is working very hard. I think that we will achieve something, I hope, as soon as possible, because you can see, and everybody can see, that the cooperation between all of us is a great cooperation. And, you know, the fact that we can talk and we have deep respect each other is something that go into the direction of defending, protect the consumer confidence of our industry. So I am confident that we will achieve something that will be a mutual understanding and common ground in order to let all of us growing and flourish in the best possible way.
Thank you, Gaetano. We've completely busted through our hour projection. Apologies to everybody for that. Finishing up, promo for next week, we're going to go to the beach. We're going to go to discuss pearls, that beautiful gem. Many people look at it as being an answer to the sustainability desires that many of the new millennial and Generation Z consumers are looking for. So we want to talk about positioning the pearl as the sustainable gem. We've got a wonderful panelist. We've got a wonderful group of panelists, which will be announced tomorrow. So please join us, same time, Thursday, 2 p.m. London, ranging from 9 a.m. New York through to 9 p.m. Hong Kong. Please join us same time next week. And if you want to get more of a fix of CIBJO webinars, please also join Rui Galopin and myself. Rui will be on holiday, but bless him, he's still going to be doing the webinars. And this week we'll be talking about angel skin. angel skin coral, excuse me, that rare rose-colored beautiful artifact also from the sea. So you can sign up and register for either of those webinars on the website. The image, the URL is on the screen. And for those of you asking, recordings of this and all of the other webinars that we've produced in this series are available on Sibjo's website there. If you want to get invitations to these directly to your inbox, please email us and we'll add you to the list. Otherwise, check your social media. And ladies and gentlemen, all of you on the panel, thank you so much for your time. We're 25 minutes over. I apologize for taking a little bit more of your time, but I hope you appreciated that was a very solid, strong conversation. Thanks to you, Gaetano. Thanks, Steve. Thanks all of you for watching. Stay safe and see you next week.